Well, welcome to this last little video before I pack the truck up and head back south tomorrow, leaving my little shed here in Mount Blackwood, where I've been for the last 10 or 12 days. It's a lovely spot. There's in front of me there's a train line that runs through there. I think it was in one of my other videos, and there's another train line that runs behind me. So I'm between two train lines. One train line hauls cane and the other one hauls goods and people and whatever. It's a big sugar cane area here. Anyway, enough of the dream. There's a lot of energy going on at the moment. I know some of you guys have been telling me you're feeling it and going through the processing, basically being still and letting it happen, the processing of the energy that's around at the moment, which collaboratively we are stirring up. I know you see a lot of things on social media that a portal is opening on this date, and there's a new availability of light happening between the solar this and the equinox that. And that's all garbage, like the whole there is always the maximal amount of light available within you to do exactly what you need to do and accomplish in your own process right here, right now, all the time without fail. So if you're waiting for some celestial event to be a signpost of pull your finger out and get on with it, then I've got bad news for you. So anyway, I did want to talk briefly about shifts in consciousness, as I seem to be going through one right now. I did post a video up this morning briefly, and then when I sat with it later, it was only a little video, when I sat with it later I realised it wasn't comprehensive. It was sort of made from within the shift, from within the experience I was going through at the time, which prompted me to make it. And when you go through a shift, there's often a bit of confusion and a bit of loose, I don't know how to describe it, loose energy. It's kind of, it's not your highest or your best work, you know what I mean. So it's often better to just chill out, step back for a minute, and feel the way you're going forward, feel the way, like, what should I do here, asking for guidance, etc. So I pulled that one off the internet this morning, and I'm going to replace it with this one, I think, unless this one turns out to be more of the same. And you go through lots of little shifts in consciousness. I really love the big shifts. I haven't had a massive shift for a long time now. I'm feeling that this shift, or this energy that I'm feeling now, is part of, I don't want to give it a meaning, because you give everything that you see all the meaning that it has for you, but it feels quite intense. It feels quite full on, like there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And I had someone from our Zoom group tell me that this morning. They were feeling the same way. And the funny thing is, as a teacher of this, as a teacher of singularity, I have to sit here on the grass. As a teacher of singularity, when you take on students, right, and I'm just going to call them students for a minute. They're not really students, they're teachers, they're brothers on the path and all of that sort of thing, but we're going to refer to them as students for a second for the sake of this video. When you take on students and you have to give as much of the information that you understand about transformation as you can to that relationship, whether it's received as you talk about it or express it or offer it or not, doesn't really matter, but it becomes very apparent when you meet someone that they are both offering you the gift of healing something in your own mind, and then the double gift of being able to offer the assertion or the certainty of your own mind into a situation that seems to represent doubt. And hopefully illuminate or enlighten that situation. Not always the case, but if you do a good amount of background work and you spend some time with somebody and get all the groundwork in, usually it's easier to face the obvious, which is not always an easy pill to swallow. So with this package of energy that I'm sitting in right now, it's definitely nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. It doesn't feel like anything other than just energy. Like if I were to go back a few years, I would have been tempted to try and label this energy as something, but it is just energy. It's just light, dark light being released to express itself as it is. And that always comes about through becoming more honest and more willing, and through being willing to step up and accept responsibility for the encapsulation of your mental state in temporal associations. You might talk about those things as being stuck in a rut. It's probably the easiest way to talk about it. And for me, I'm just going to spin a story, whether it's correct or not doesn't matter, but I'm just going to try to portray the ideas associated with energy transformation, with light transformation, in a way through symbols, so that you can perhaps have more clarity for yourself when things like this occur to you, and they probably are occurring to you anyway, because we're all one and it feels pretty across the board. I just heard Jesus tell me, I'm in charge. He's a funny guy. He is in charge, it's true, he is in charge. There's nothing to worry about, but getting out of the way, like learning how to get out of the way and allow the shift in energy to happen, is something that takes a little bit of mastery. And letting Jesus be in charge, yes, exactly. Oh my God. It's also very funny. It's hilarious. It's freaking hilarious. So anyway, the big association that I'm going to equate with this energy I'm feeling, for me, goes back to my very, very early childhood, when I was just a toddler with crayons and learnt to draw. And ever since, to the age of almost 60 years, have had an interest in art, with income from art in sign writing, canvas painting and tattooing, and basically anything I could do to make a dollar out of art, because I loved it. And today marks the day that is actually my very last day as a tattoo artist, after 23 years of playing that role, sitting in that little shop, that portal, offering the certainty of my mind, often silently, to whoever comes, whoever is sent, knowing that I can just as easily fulfill my atonement sitting in some place where no one knows who I am or what I do, as I can as if I sat on a podium and started speaking the blessed words of the scriptures, and everybody knew who I was and what I do. So, and it's kind of cool, I think. I mean, it suits my I don't know what it suits my, but it suits how I feel to express myself with a reasonable amount of anonymity. I know on social media I've got a little bit of a profile. I mean, actually I don't even know what kind of profile I have at all, to be honest. But I could only know that compared to other profiles about other things or whatever, and I'm really not interested. It doesn't interest me how many likes or followers or any of that sort of stuff. But what does interest me is that the message gets out, because there are those who are desperately looking for an alternative to the world they find themselves in. So today marks the last day of my interest in art. And for a long time, for about 5 or 6 years, I have known that this day is coming. I've known that at some point my passion and interest for expressing myself through the creative means of paint and ink and everything like that, it'll come to an end, because everything in time and space comes to an end. And I guess I had this kind of secret hope that it would come to an end in this incarnation, and it has. Today's the day, and I have no regret, no loss, and I have no jubilation and no reason for celebrating it. It's just like, that's the end of it. It's just a matter of fact, and that's sort of how it is with every shift in consciousness. You realize you're no longer attracted or interested or something in anything anymore, and you've just sort of reached the end of that tether with that particular association. But this one's been one that's been imprinted in the cells of my being, in the fibre of my body and my mental profile for ever since I was a baby, I guess, a very young 3 or 4 year old. I'm just sort of sitting with it, and just feeling that it is done, that I've reached the end of this road. And sometimes you get to the end of something, like when I was going through the release from sex and the idea of physical pleasure, which has now been, it's been 5 years since I've had sex, I think, roughly about 5 years, maybe not that long. But I have consciously recognized the dwindling away of the passion for that, or the desire for that, for a good 10 years. And it's one of the things that marked the ending of my marriage, unfortunately. But I no longer had any interest for physical pleasure. And now it's art, and slowly the wheels of healing roll along through the hallways of my mind. I think there's a song something along like that, The Carpenters or something. The windmills of my mind. Anyway, so there's a lot of energy with it. If you are a student of mine, and I'm calling you a student for a second instead of brother, so please excuse that for a minute. If you are a student of mine and you're consciously engaged with me in this process of healing and learning, you can learn to tune in with where I'm at with things, as I am often able to tune in where you guys are at with things. And I quite often have people say to me, how did you know that? How did you know I was going through this or that? And it's like, I really don't know how I know. I wouldn't say it's clairvoyancy. I would say that we share a single mind. We are one self. And if you have a close relationship with me in the idea of healing in that forum, then we do tend to overlap individually as we heal singularly. I don't know if that's how I want to express that, but I think it'll do for now. When I was at the healing centre all those years ago, going through the primary stage, I guess, of my transformation, learning to use the workbook of A Course in Miracles, some days there was 100 people in the room, and because it's a place of transformation, every day of the week somebody's going through something. I mean, it's not like you don't go through something anyway in daily life. I mean, people get divorced and people change their jobs and have meltdowns and whatever. But when you're doing it consciously, when you're consciously about the business of having those meltdowns by the grace of God, or having those changes occur by the grace of God, something else happens, right? So Jesus says in the Bible, where two or more are gathered, there I am in the midst of them. Now, Jesus is the Holy Spirit. He's the symbol for the Holy Spirit. And there has been many times, countless times, like I've literally lost track of the times when we've been doing a group meditation and I have felt the presence of Jesus in the group, not as the person, but as the presence of spirit, as pure spirit, which is this just God. Feels like that. Makes me want to cry. I miss eternity so much. It's funny. I know I'm not separate from it, and yet I seem to be, and I still miss it. I still long to be at home where I am and have always been. It's a bizarre predicament to find yourself in. But anyway, nonetheless, there's nothing to be done about it, only to continue. That's it. So you would always tell in those situations, you would feel the presence of spirit, and you would have groups of people just as if by hands unseen, invisible helpers be thronged together in the middle of a group, and like a standing man, all of a sudden, and pushed around the room in mass, and like without any kind of control, just as if they're caught in an eddy or a current in the ocean and just being moved, like physically moved. I've seen people fly through the air, and I even had somebody fly back into me one day during a light session. The energy was so strong, and somebody in the middle of the group had a spontaneous release, and the energy set out like a shockwave through the whole group, and somebody was thrown back into me. Somebody even broke, I think it was a finger or an arm once. It's not a bad track record, once in 6 years, from being flung back from the core of the group. And anyway, I haven't done a light session for a long time. Doing them on the internet is not the same. It is not the same. My teacher, Ted, used to always say that he couldn't understand how it could ever be the same online. There's something about physical proximity. There shouldn't be, because everything is mind, but there is. And all I can put that down to is the overpowering belief in the nature of proximity and location, etc. A false belief, but one that nonetheless prevails, which is relatively harmless as far as the thought system goes. The crux of the thought system of A Course in Miracles focuses mostly on forgiveness, mostly on experience and having a shift in consciousness. It does deal with time early on, bringing the mind to understand there is only the here and the now, which is part of the equation, but it doesn't dwell too heavily on the idea that location, well, I guess it does. I guess it dwells equally, but for me it didn't, and that might be just the way I read it. Ah, boy, this is heavy stuff. I can feel it. So anyway, shifts occur. When a shift occurs, you're going to feel discombobulated, to say the least. I think Tina's having a shift at the moment. I can feel something going on with her in California, and I've been trying to keep an open mind in the middle of my thing, reaching out to her through the collective, through the singular sense of the sonship, to lend support, etc. And when you get a little bit more advanced in your practices, you will in fact learn how to, I don't know if you really learn how to, but you kind of stumble onto it. You stumble onto these sort of things that can be done, and Generally, they seem to be not very much, but in the grand scheme of things, I think they're quite a lot. But my teacher Ted used to have some pretty unexplainable supernatural powers that you can only put down to being the powers of the spirit through him directly in a certain regard. And I have noticed many times those same and very similar things through me, but Ted seemed to have more of a command of it, whereas for me it seems to happen kind of spontaneously, and I just get like a little prompt and I seem to somehow know what to do or whatever. But anyway, I'm just sort of rambling here. I don't know if this is helpful to anyone, but since you guys are all going through this and going to be going through this at some point and at some level, I guess the central message I'm trying to get across here is to not adjust to the shift. It's going to be confusing. There's going to be a few days, usually about 3 days, of disorientation, confusion. You won't know where you are, all these sorts of things. You'll feel like taking a few days off work and you don't want to talk to anybody. Learn to identify your shifts. Like if you've been praying for the healing of something in your mind that you've been triggered about, if you've been praying for the healing of something in your mind that continually upsets you in someone else or in yourself, you can expect a result to your prayer, and that result is going to be movement of energy. It's going to be healing. You'll feel it perhaps starting in your, like in your bum hole. Sometimes it feels like there's a pushing or a what do you call it, a rising up from there through your bodily organs into your stomach and your pelvis and all of that, and then up and up into your throat, your chest and your throat. And it feels awkward, it feels horrible, it feels like you for me it's a little bit smoother now. I think I've accepted the fact that energy does move through the body. Energy is always moving through the body, and what would you call it, the toroidal field of light that encapsulates, I'm trying to put this together here, I've got bits I've got bits, I don't have a clear thing, I've got bits, but the field of energy that surrounds your body, that, and there is, you can measure it actually with scientific instruments, how many volts your body puts out and how much electricity you can conduct, etc. Once it stops becoming static, once you start to awaken from your fearful sense of self and you become more loving again, it starts to flow, and you realize that light communication or truth communication is the natural predilection of the children of God. I often refer to that energy field, well, I don't often refer to it, it's hard to refer to because it's giving meaning to something that has no form association about it, but only for the purposes of trying to impart some sort of understanding to help bring peace to those who don't really identify what's going on for them. That's a mouthful. So there's a lot that goes on in transformation, and the movement of energy is, oh man, it can be ugly. It can be, you want to run away, you got nowhere to run, you want to get away from your teacher, you want to throw the book away, you got to, and then you realise after a while, hang on a minute, that actually is my healing occurring, and all that I need to do is to be still and let it occur. But it often is equated with an intense feeling of anxiety, existential anxiety, because you don't know, it doesn't seem to have a catalyst outside you in the world, it's just anxiety for no seeming reason at all, but it is the frequency of existential anxiety which is the hallmark of the effect of believing in the idea of being separate from God. It brings up a great deal of anxiety in the separated ones, and confronting it again, which you have to do, confronting it again as you look through your repertoire of fears, it often stirs up a great sense of fear and even terror as you get closer to it. And
I don't have any sense of fear or terror with what I'm feeling at the moment, but it feels heavy, oppressive. It feels like it's sluggish to move. It feels like it's in the early stages of being released or something. It's like it's finished, it's done, and now it's going to be transformed. So I've been sitting in it for a couple of days, but if I don't put out a video for another 2 or 3 days, you'll know that I'm trying to sit still and process this as it occurs. It's ongoing, you know. I often have people say to me, dude, you've experienced beyond the veil, you know, you're enlightened, you're whatever. How is it you're still experiencing healing? How is it you're still going through the process of atonement? And of course that's because my experience was top down instead of bottom up. I had the experience first and now have to undergo the process of healing to align and ground myself with that experience, which I think I'm doing okay at it, actually. I think I'm getting there. I give myself a little pat on the back the other day, and then instantly I reminded myself, hang on a minute, I'm always the liar. Am I going to really trust this? Is it worth putting any energy into to feel good about how I'm doing? You know, it's like, I mean, it's all ego, but sometimes you just want someone to say, hey, you know, I'm with you on the path, it's all good, we've got this, you know. When you're by yourself so much like I am, you know, I mean, I've got social media and all you guys, but in the general vicinity of people that live around here, which isn't many actually, you can probably tell, I don't really have anyone that I can go and talk to about this stuff. So, not that I need to, but just sometimes you just feel like having a cold beer and just like, whew, how's that shift? How's the energy today? You know, if I said that to the cane farmers over the road, they'd probably look at me like I was from another planet or something. But, I don't know. I don't want to project that onto them. They're probably fully enlightened, waiting for me to get my shit together. It's always the great joke. The joke's always on me. God. I'm definitely feeling this in my chest, so I'm going to leave it there. Sometimes I can manipulate energy and fiddle around with it and breathe and use, I guess, what Eastern people call the pranic techniques of breath work and stuff to try and shift the energy. But something in me says, don't do that. Just leave it to be. This is a big package. Jesus has told me again, he said, like I said, I'm in charge. So I'm just going to leave it to Jesus. Thank you, brother. Holy shit. I'm so dumb. I'm such a dummy. It's funny. Oh, God. I'm laughing with Ted now. Ted and Jesus are hanging out together. I mean, everybody's together. The frequency that I pick up on is the individual entities that represent the healing conduits that I relate to, I guess. You know, I don't know how to. I can't talk. Like, seriously, you gotta really let yourself have this, that it's going to lead you into some pretty nutty territory. I mean, God knows how I'm ever going to get another job. Anyway, thank you. A little housekeeping. All things being equal, we're going to go back to doing my Sunday for you guys in the United States, etc., for the Zoom meetings. Any of you guys in Europe that want to join in and those times are not good, just let Tina know and we'll schedule something else. We'll do one here, one there. But I'd rather do that than have you guys all sitting there yawning at me, which is generally what happens with all you English people. I know Tina doesn't generally get to bed till like 1:30, 2 o'clock a.m. in the morning, and like, what the hell, but that's usually when I wake up. Maybe that's why, I don't know. But we're going to be doing the Zoom meetings. Also, Dana is going to be doing some stuff. I put up a post today thanking Tina for her efforts with the YouTube page and everything. She's really made a huge difference, and I'm totally thankful, totally grateful to God for that. And also, Dana has just jumped on board. She's going to be posting every day the workbook lesson for the day on my Facebook page from the YouTube video compilation that I've got, which is probably close to 400 videos now, maybe more. I'm totally grateful for anyone that wants to help out with all that stuff, and you can get in touch with Tina. Also posting random witness kind of videos and things on other Course in Miracles groups, spiritual groups, Facebook groups. I know they pop up and fade away quite quickly, some of them, but some have a devoted following and things like that. And I find that generally there is this ability for social media groups to actually reach out and support individuals in a certain way regarding healing, etc. I think the downfall in some regards of that is that everybody runs a group slightly differently based on their perception of their idea of healing. And I've heard some pretty far and fancy ideas about healing, I've got to tell you. I think the only idea about healing you really need to focus on is faith. Jesus says, by your faith alone are you healed. As soon as you start bringing crystals or cards or anything else into it, that's really not faith. You're putting your power into an external catalyst for something. And I'm not going to say don't do that, but I'm going to say eventually your journey will lead you beyond all that. I mean, I had a funny little thing with a crystal once, got zapped by it. It's just a chunk of rock, what the hell. Anyway, if you want to join the Zoom meetings, it'd be great to see you. We're going to change the format of the Zoom meetings for a few meetings, I think. I want to do something more funky with some music and a little active meditation, and see if we can't get something groovier happening rather than just the relentless onslaught of pushing energy around, which is good. I mean, it's the main part of it, but also you want to master the release of that energy as well. Here we go, freight train with the load. So I'll leave it there. I'll post this one up now, and if you have any questions, like, that's totally awesome. If you've got any questions related to energy release, and I'll call it energy, it's really light, it's really like the release of imprisoned light, but if I call it energy, it's easier for you to understand what that is, because we're so used to experiencing happenings with
different energetic forces in the world here, it sort of has a bit more bearing. But ultimately, you'll just understand that everything is just light. But it helps to talk about it, I find, as energy for now, and you're an energy worker or a light worker or whatever. And it's like, really, you're none of those. You're a child of God. You are the Christ. But we do have this work to do. We do have this responsibility to the atonement, each of us. And that's all I'm focused on right now. Being a child of God, that's great. That's what you have been and always have been forever. That doesn't, having that as a concept doesn't get you out of the shit. Things have got to change. You've got to have a shift. You've got to go through the passage, through that shadow of the valley of death, and out the other side. All right, I love you. And Andre too, from our Zoom meeting. If you haven't heard his song, oh man, it brought me to tears. Such a beautiful little song. I put it on our on my Facebook page. I think, or Tina put it up there. Absolutely beautiful. So, anyway, thank you and peace.